Hey everyone, this is the start of day 3 with my California Extreme Mustang Makeover horse, and we're gonna go on a little field trip today just down the road. Definitely have never taken one out of its pen or even off property this early on, but I'm feeling pretty comfortable with this mare. Like, I'll be able to yield her hip if I need to and get her under control for leading. So now the thing that took longest with trailer loading was actually figuring out how to get her to turn around. I didn't want to get stuck in there with her while she was trying to figure it out, so I was trying to get her nose to that back right corner so she would have room to move her shoulder over, but it took us a little while to maneuver and figure that out. But she did really awesome. That was our first try loading up this day. And instead of using hay to get her on, I just had hay up there as a reward for her getting up. Yeah, so she did pretty awesome with that trailer loading. So once we got there, I wanted to make sure that we were slower to unload. I really wanted her just to take her time and look around.
Check it out. You're good. Small horse is here.
And I will eventually teach her how to back out of the trailer, but for now, I'd like her to come out forward. That way she can just see everything as she's coming out and not freak out. And she came off pretty gently, which was nice. And now, for this whole video, there's going to be a lot of clips where the audio is super quiet because it's so windy you can't even hear anything that's happening.
I don't think she's going to jump out. I don't think so. She's kind of...
So the reason I wanted to trailer over here was because there's a pretty nice round pen and the footing is decent. It is dusty, but it's like the right depth that I like. So I wanted to try to get her coming over here as soon as possible. That way I could actually work her in a round pen. So you can hear that the wind is pretty bad, and it's pretty bad the entire video. So first thing I'm going to do is get her round penning and moving. She hasn't really trotted much, so this will be nice to see her move out. And she's a horse that really likes to be on top of you and in your space, so this is super important that I get her to move out and go out of my space. I'm always going to start light when I ask something, but you'll see with her in a lot of these clips I have to increase to a little bit more pressure than I would the average Mustang, at least what I've found. So right now all I'm focused on is the direction that she's going in. I'm not worried about speed, I'm not worried about where she is on the circle. I just want her to go the direction that I'm asking. So she's actually doing pretty well with keeping that trot, even though she could be at a walk right now, but most of them stay at the trot. It's easier for them to understand to go out at that. So again, you're going to see me increase my pressure at certain points when she tries to change direction. I just have to make sure I'm quick enough, so sometimes I'll run in to get near her hip and increase that pressure. If you see any lines on her side from the string on the stick that I'm using, it's just dirt. Don't worry, I'm barely touching her with it, but I did want to just say this just in case some people were like, oh, you're hitting her so hard. No, I'm just increasing to whatever pressure is necessary. Again, it's just the dust coming off of this string when I'm tapping her with it. Good, and you saw that little release right there when she moved out just one step. I was quick to give a fast release. She really wants to come into me. And she tried to change direction, so I increased her away. As soon as she changed, I dropped and relaxed. She tried to change again over there, so I increased. Again, I just want to keep her tracking left right now. Later on, we'll start to worry about everything else. We'll worry about speed, circle size, but for right now, I just want her either going left or right. Good, and now I'm going to ask her to face up, which I know she'd do a good job with because she likes to come into me. And I ask her to change directions, and she's very soft about it, so I'm soft about it. Right there, I think I increased my body speed to ask her to move out on the edge of the circle a little more. So now we're asking for more than just the direction changes. And at this point, I'm not super concerned if she turns away or does an inside turn. I focus on inside and outside turns later on in round penning. I just, again, want her to change that direction. There was my first time asking for a speed increase and then asking her to move out. She was super soft with the speed increase, but then moving out, you can see she did give me a little bit attitude once I quickened my stride towards her. Right now I'm just asking her to look at me and give me both her eyes. Good, and I was really happy with that step towards the center towards me, so I'm going to just go up to her and pet on her and reward her. That's all I was going to work on for round penning. I just want to do a little bit each day. Now I have my 2 whips, and I'm going to funnel her in and get her to draw up to me. Usually with this I can work a little bit on shoulder control. So I already know she's pretty good at following me and coming right up to me, so I'm not necessarily using it to work on that. I'm using it more for the shoulder control. And teaching her how to drive forward with a whip, so you can see that I'm tapping her side there when she gets stuck. Again, as soon as she walks forward, I'll release that pressure, but still keep my whips up. Just looking for that left shoulder to lift up. I'm going to keep asking. Good. And as soon as I felt that lift a little bit, I'm going to reward her for that because that took a little bit longer. There we go. That's that right shoulder coming over. So, and for a horse that likes to be on top of you and in your space, I feel that shoulder control is very important for them. Because that's typically what they tend to do, is they'll push into you, and that normally comes from the shoulder. So now I'm going to do a few exercises on the line. Start with just asking her to go out, just as if we're lunging. So, yep, here I'm going to keep asking on that shoulder or the ribs for her to get out of my space. And I start this very early on, clearly, because it's day 3 and I'm working on it. I've had a couple horses that are pushy like this. I know Fiesta liked to be in my space. Rude liked to be in my space a little bit at certain points in her training. So I'm pretty strict on this because I never want one thinking it's okay to jump on top of me as a response, or that I don't have a personal bubble. This is good to work on for, again, getting those ribs out, but then I can also work on yielding those hindquarters. And you can see as soon as she moves out, I'm gonna let her move out as long as she's getting out of my space. And you see how soft that was right there? I don't even think I had to tap her, and she understood that the pressure on her ribs was for her to pick up and move out. So now we're gonna focus a little bit on the hindquarters. And you'll notice in some of these clips, I may only show one side. I am doing both, but it would just be an extremely long video if I showed everything I was doing on each side. Especially if she has similar reactions on each side, I just don't really find it super necessary for me to include both. Good, so you can see me leaning and putting all of my pressure at that one point on her hip. And even just from a little step like that, I'm gonna reward. She's getting a little stuck with that front end. She's wanting to move it towards me. Good, I want one more step out of that hip. I'm going to stick with her while she's moving. There we go. And so for that, I really want that front end to stay still and the hip to move. So I wanted to just see how she was with flexing, and she seemed like she gave really easy there, but I held it because it was almost too easy, and I was like, oh, I feel like there'll be some resistance. So now I'm going to keep asking her to hold that flex position, but I'm going to move with her as she's figuring it out. She's got to find that release on her own, and there she got it. So now back over to the right side. She does flex pretty nicely. That side there is a little less resistance on. And now this is one of the most important things I feel, is getting that pole release. This helps them get soft in so many different ways, especially when you're riding, when you're teaching them to tie, when you're teaching them to lead. So what I'm doing is I'm taking my 2 fingers and I'm squeezing on her pole, as well as I have my hand on the lead rope, kind of to show you those releases better. You see, when I adjust my fingers and open them a little bit, I'm giving releases, mini releases within that. As soon as she drops her head, even like 1 centimeter, I'm releasing, because she's just learning this now. So I'll squeeze my fingers at the top, and then I'll also pull down a little bit on the lead rope, and then I'll release both at the same time as soon as she gives and softens through her pole. Gonna work on a little bit of trotting. And I kind of started doing this because of Rue. I start by facing them when I'm teaching them now, because with Rue, I did not trust her if I were to be facing the same direction as her and asking her to trot. I felt that she was going to literally attack me. So now I kind of have them draw up to me the first couple times. I can see where their feet are going to go better. I can gauge their expression and body language. She learned that pretty quick. She got a couple good trot steps towards me. And now I'm working on that advanced leading exercise that I teach in my How to Train Your Horse to Do Liberty Part 1 video, where I use my whip to get them to catch up with me, and as soon as they do, I relax my body language and slow down and stop. And then after the stop, I'll back them up a few steps. Now with her, I'm doing this pretty light. I'm not being super strict right away because she's only been leading for like 2 days. And even though her stop was nice, I want to work on her backup anyways, so I'm going to keep reinforcing it with the backup. You can see her backup is still jagged, but she's starting to understand it. Now I want to work on having my arm over on the other side of her. Some horses get freaked out when they see you out of both eyes, so this is super important, especially since I'm going to be starting her under saddle. They also get worried by the patting noise, which is what she's worried about right now. So instead of continuing to pat on the opposite side, I switch to the side that I'm on because it's more the noise and feeling that's bothering her right now. And I'm just going to keep patting her lightly until she wants to relax down. and then I'll release the pressure of the padding. So that's something that I like to do over all of their body. I'll pat on their heads, their necks, their hips, their ribs, everywhere. One, it's just good for desensitizing, and two, it helps get used to the feeling of touch everywhere on them. So once she softened from me patting on one side, I went back over to that opposite side that I started on. Good, and she's starting to get more comfortable with it, so I'm able to release. Still a little bit tense though. Now I want to touch down on her legs. She was really good with me running my hand down both of her front legs. I'm going to start with jumping around her, getting some more movement, and this will increase over the next couple days. I'll start jumping more like at her shoulder, over her withers. Back to that pole release, getting her to soften. And now I'm going to show her the ribbon wand, which is a really cool tool that I've started using for the past year or so. It's great. It's so soft to get them used to touch everywhere, so I feel safe with it around their face. It also can make a snapping noise. It makes a lot of noises as you move it through the air. Of course, it was super windy today, so this poor mare, we worked with it in the wind, and it definitely went and touched her body at times when I did not want it to, so it made it a little bit more difficult. But right now I just want her to get used to the feeling. She might think that I'm asking her to move out, or she just might be nervous and trying to move away from it. Again, I'm going to rub it on her face because she got a little bit anxious there. Again, back to moving it, and you can tell I try to keep my body language fairly calm through all of this. I pretty much stand in one spot and let the horse work it out. Good, so she ended nice there, so I'm going to rub it on her. You're going to see this ribbon kind of goes in a bunch of places that I didn't really want it to. So ideally it would not have gone in front of her face right then. I'm trying to just get it over her back, but the wind is making it pretty hard. As she's getting worried about it, I'm going to keep just gently tossing it over her back and pulling it off and tossing it over until she relaxes. And that's something else that's super important that I believe I've talked about a couple other times. It's not just desensitizing your horse while they're standing still, it's desensitizing them at the walk, trot, and canter too. Because a horse can be good with something standing still, but they can be holding all that tension and anxiety in a state that we like to call freeze. A lot of people think there's either fight or flight, but there's also freeze, which I feel like a lot of horses like to do. They like to hold all that anxiety in and not move, and some people will see that as, okay, my horse is good with something, they're not running away from it. But it's really important to make sure that your horse can also walk and be okay with it, and trot and be okay with it. So I like to work on things with movement as well. So there you could see I was moving it on the ground in front of her, getting her used to that motion. And then I started a little bit with the snapping of it. So we went on a walk outside of the pen, and now I feel like I've prepared her a decent amount, as much as I could, to start teaching her how to tie. As the mare is working on tying, I figured it might be fun to show a little bit of just playing with Lynx. This is what I did, as I just let her up there for a little bit. And like I was saying with the mare, she has a tendency to pull back. She likes to back up, and I know she was going to struggle with tying quite a bit, because if they like to pull back, that's definitely something they're going to test.
Good. Good.
But I do feel like I prepared her with a lot of different exercises to give to pressure. So the next thing was really just to tie her up and let her test it and learn what she could and couldn't do tying. I made sure she knew how to yield her hips and give.
Wait. Hey.
Lynx hasn't had turnout in a while, so he was super excited to get out today and get to run around the pen. He has a little turnout area, but not enough to run around and be silly.
Now up. Good.
This is what the mare is doing. And I did video for a while. I just had my GoPro over there, but she definitely is testing it. But this is really important for her to learn. Some people don't like to tie their horses at all, and I definitely don't ever want to just go and hard tie one right away and that be their first experience with it. I want to prepare them the best I can by teaching them how to give to pressure in a bunch of different ways, and I have been working with her on that, so I did think it was time to tie her up, but you can tell she is trying to figure it out. She's trying to understand how to still give to it. And yeah, like I was saying, some people don't want to tie their horses. They're terrified of them getting hurt, or they think that they're going to break out, but I think it's a super important skill to learn, especially because I don't know where she's going to end up down the road. I'm sure she will be with a fantastic family, but still, that family might want to go to horse shows and tie her to a trailer, or they might use her in lessons and need her tied up and being able to stand. So this is definitely an important skill that I want to teach all of my horses. So you can really tell she has that back up and fight instinct. But after a while, after a few tries, she started to relax at the tying post. And I do want her to understand that it's a place to relax at. I don't want her to be stressed. This is going to be a place where she gets worked, and then she gets to come and stand there and digest all that information and relax. But she did do a really good job with it for her first day. And I think my little GoPro died, but she ended on a really good note, tying to that post over there. And she's just gonna stay the night over here. This is literally just down the road from me. It's on the same street. So she stayed overnight and she did awesome. All I did with her for that day was I just brushed her mane out and I braided it, and then we headed back to the farm. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to see more of this mare or my other content, please subscribe and give this video a like if you liked it.